The wind screamed outside the lonely cabin. Snow fell heavy from the black sky. The forest was silent except for the storm. Inside the cabin, a man sat by the fire. His name was Daniel, and he had lived alone for many years. He liked the quiet mountains, far away from the noise of cities. But tonight, he felt something different in the air. The storm seemed alive, like it was hiding something. Suddenly, there came a knock at the door. It was weak at first, then louder, urgent. Daniel froze, his hand tightening on the wooden chair. No one ever came here, not in such weather. Another knock, this time like a desperate fist. He grabbed the axe from the wall just in case. Slowly, he pulled the door open. Cold wind and snow rushed in, and there, standing in the storm, was a woman. She was not like any woman he had seen before. Her skin glowed faint purple under the moonlight. Her long hair was silver gold, wet from the snow. Her eyes shone like liquid fire. She looked weak, almost falling. Her clothes were torn, her arms covered in scratches. Daniel stared, his axe trembling in his hand. The woman whispered, her voice shaking, "Please, help me." She collapsed onto the snow at his feet. Daniel's heart pounded. He could leave her there, let the storm take her, but something inside him refused. He dropped the axe and lifted her into his arms. Her body was cold, lighter than he expected. He carried her inside and shut the door. The firelight touched her face, and Daniel finally saw her clearly. She was not human. She was something else, something alien. For a moment, Daniel thought he was dreaming. Her glowing skin, her sharp features, her strange beauty. It was too unreal. He laid her near the fire and covered her with a blanket. Her lips moved, whispering words in a language he didn't know. Then she spoke again, in broken English. "He left me here." Daniel leaned closer. "Who left you?" he asked. She opened her eyes slowly, pain and anger burning inside them. "My husband," she said. "He said my blood is dirty. He abandoned me to die." Daniel frowned, confused and cautious. "What do you mean? Dirty blood?" The woman coughed, her hands trembling. "I am not pure," she said. "My people hate my kind. I was given to a man, but he discovered what I am." She paused, tears sliding down her glowing skin. "He left me at your door because he did not want to kill me himself." Daniel felt a shiver, not from the cold, but from her words. Who was this husband? Where did they come from? Why here, to his cabin in the mountains? Questions filled his mind, but no answers came. The woman looked at him, her eyes begging. "You can throw me back into the snow if you wish," she said softly, "but please, not yet." For a long time, Daniel said nothing. The storm roared against the cabin walls. He stared at the alien woman. She was weak, but there was something strong about her too, a spirit that refused to die. Finally, he nodded slowly. "You can stay," he said, "but only until you heal. Then you must leave." The woman closed her eyes, relief softening her face. "Thank you," she whispered. Daniel sat back, watching the fire, but his mind could not rest. Why had her husband abandoned her here? Was it by chance, or was there a reason? He felt uneasy, as if invisible eyes were already watching the cabin. He did not know that outside in the forest, shadows were moving. Tall figures with strange armor walked silently through the snow, their voices low and sharp. They carried weapons that glowed faintly in the dark, and they were hunting. Inside, Daniel heard nothing yet. The woman stirred, whispering in her sleep. Her words made little sense, but one phrase chilled him to the bone. "They will come for me. They will come for you too." Daniel looked at the dune, where the fire cracked, the storm raged, and the night had only just begun. The storm did not end with the night. By morning, the forest was still buried under heavy snow. Daniel stepped outside the cabin only for a moment, his boots sinking deep. The cold air bit at his skin and the silence felt unnatural. No birds, no animals, only the weight of the storm pressing down. Something was wrong, and he knew it. When he returned inside, the alien woman was awake. She sat close to the fire, wrapped in the blanket he had given. Her eyes followed him with a mix of fear and curiosity. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Daniel broke the silence. "You should tell me your name." The woman hesitated, her lips tight. Finally she whispered, "My name is Lyra." Daniel nodded slowly. He poured hot water into a cup and handed it to her. She took it with shaking hands. Her skin glowed faintly in the firelight, violet and silver like starlight on water. "You said last night your husband abandoned you," Daniel said. "Why here? Why me?" Lyra's gaze lowered, her voice soft but sharp with pain. "Because he wanted me to vanish quietly," she said. "If I died in the snow, no one would ask questions." Daniel frowned, his jaw tight. "Why would your husband want you dead?" Lyra took a long breath, her fingers tightening around the cup. Because of my blood, she said. My people are proud and cruel. They believe only in pure lines. Her eyes flicked up to his, glowing with a deep fire. My mother was human, my father alien, to my kind, that makes me unclean, a mistake, a shame. Daniel felt a chill, half human, half alien. That was the secret she carried. Her own people despised her. And your husband? Daniel asked. He is one of the council's soldiers, she whispered. He took me as a wife only to raise his rank, but when he learned my blood was mixed, he saw me as dirt. He could not kill me himself. It would stain his honor, so he left me here instead. Abandoned lies. Garbage. Her voice shook, but her eyes burned. She was fragile yet strong, broken yet unbroken. Daniel stared at the fire, unsure what to say. He had lived alone for so long, he never imagined the universe would walk into his cabin. Yet here she was, carrying secrets that could shake worlds. A sound broke the silence, a distant crack outside the cabin. Daniel froze, listening, but the storm covered it quickly. He turned back to Lyra. Is someone looking for you? He asked. Her face went pale, her hands trembling. They will come, she whispered. They will never allow me to live. And now, you are part of it too. Daniel's chest tightened. He had not chosen this, but already her enemies might be near. He stood and checked the axe near the door. You should rest, he said firmly. I'll keep watch. But Lyra shook her head. You don't understand, she said. Her voice was urgent now, her eyes sharp with fear. They will not stop. The hunters already know where I am, and if they find me here, they will not spare you. Daniel stared at her. She was right, he could feel it, the strange silence outside, the storm that felt alive. Something was moving in the woods, something not human. Lyra leaned closer, her voice low. You saved me, and for that, I owe you the truth, she said. Her hand touched the small bag at her side, hidden under the torn red cloth. From it she pulled a crystal shard, glowing faint blue. This is why they hunt me, she whispered. Daniel's eyes fixed on the shard. It pulsed with light like a living heart. What is it? He asked. Lyra's voice shook. It is knowledge, forbidden knowledge. My father left it for me. It carries secrets of both worlds, human and alien. Daniel's breath caught. Now he understood. It wasn't only her blood that made her dangerous. It was what she carried, something her people wanted destroyed. Before he could speak again, a new sound echoed from the forest. Not thunder, not the storm, but heavy footsteps, slow and deliberate. Lyra's face turned white with terror. They found us, she whispered. Daniel gripped the axe, his pulse racing. He looked at the door, at the snow beyond. Shadows moved in the trees, tall and silent. Voices murmured in a language he didn't know. The hunters had come. Lyra clutched the crystal shard to her chest. Her eyes met Daniel's. You must choose, she said. You can give me to them, and they will spare you, or you can stand with me, and make yourself their enemy too. The fire cracked. The storm screamed. Daniel felt the weight of the choice heavy on his shoulders. His quiet life was already gone, and outside, death was waiting. The cabin walls shook as the storm howled, but beneath the roar of the wind, Daniel heard them. Footsteps in the snow, slow and careful, too heavy to be animals, too steady to be lost travelers. Hunters. He gripped the axe tighter, his knuckles white. The fire flickered across his face, casting sharp shadows on the wall. Lyra pressed her back against the cabin's wooden planks. Her silver hair caught the glow of the flames, her eyes wide, her breathing shallow. They are here, she whispered. Her voice was filled with certainty, as if she could feel them even before Daniel could hear them. Outside, the crunch of snow grew closer. Daniel's heart hammered in his chest. He had lived alone for years, and in that time he had faced wolves, bears, even desperate men, but nothing had ever felt like this. This was different. This was death walking on two legs. A sudden knock struck the door, not like the weak, desperate knock Lyra had made. This one was sharp, commanding. Daniel stood frozen, every muscle tight. The knock came again, harder this time. Then a voice, deep and cold. Open the door, human, give us what belongs to us. Do this, and we will leave you alive. Daniel glanced at Lyra. She shook her head violently, fear in her eyes. They lie, she whispered. They will kill you once they take me. Daniel's throat felt dry. He looked around the cabin, the axe in his hand, a hunting knife on the table, a rifle against the wall. But against whatever stood outside, it all felt like sticks and stones. The voice called again. You have 10 breaths, then we come inside. Daniel's mind raced. He had two choices. Open the door and hand Lyra over, or fight and die. But a strange fire burned inside him. A man who had chosen solitude for years now felt a pull he could not explain. He looked at Lyra, broken yet unbroken, and he knew he would not give her away. He leaned close to her, whispering, "If they come inside, we make them pay for every step." Lyra's eyes widened, a mix of fear and hope. She nodded, clutching the glowing shard to her chest. "I will stand with you," she said, her voice trembling but steady. The silence outside was broken by the groan of wood. The door shook, once, twice. Then it splintered inward with a crash. Snow and wind burst inside, along with 3 tall figures. They were armored in black plates that shimmered faintly in the firelight, their faces hidden behind masks, their eyes glowing red through narrow slits. Strange rifles hummed in their hands, the tips glowing faint blue. One of them pointed directly at Daniel. "Move aside, human," the hunter growled. "She is not yours." Daniel's heart pounded. He raised the axe anyway, his hand steady. "Then come and take her," he said, his voice low. For a moment, the hunters paused, almost surprised. Then one of them laughed, a cruel metallic sound. The first shot fired, a beam of blue light tore across the cabin, smashing into the wall. Wood splintered, flames hissed as sparks rained down. Isle moved fast, swinging the axe with all his strength. The blade crashed into the arm of the nearest hunter, sparks flying as metal dented. The alien roared, stumbling back. Lyra cried out, raising her shard. It pulsed with sudden light, blinding and sharp. The hunters froze, their visors flickering. Daniel seized the moment, grabbing his rifle and firing at the nearest chest plate. The bullet struck, not piercing but knocking the alien back into the wall. The cabin shook with chaos, snow pouring through the broken door, fire snapping, alien weapons humming. Daniel ducked behind the table as another blast of blue light scorched the air. The wood exploded into splinters, cutting his arm. Pain burned, but he held on. Lyra knelt on the floor, clutching the shard. Her lips moved quickly, whispering words in her alien tongue. The shard's glow spread, wrapping her hands in light. The hunters snarled, their weapons flickering under the strange energy. "She is using it," one of them roared. "Take it from her." Daniel pushed forward, swinging the axe again, his blood hot with adrenaline. This time he drove it into the side of another hunter's leg. The alien stumbled, crashing into the fire. Flames licked across the black armor, smoke rising. The hunter thrashed, roaring in rage. Another beam shot past Daniel's head, scorching the wall. He dove for cover, breath ragged. The cabin was becoming a battlefield, wood splintering, fire burning higher, the storm howling through the shattered door. Then, suddenly, the hunters began to retreat. The one in the lead barked an order in their strange tongue. They moved back into the storm, their glowing eyes locked on Lyra. "This is not finished," one growled before vanishing into the snow. The cabin fell silent again, except for the storm and the crackle of flames. Daniel stood panting, his axe dripping with sparks and ash, his arm bleeding, his chest burning with exhaustion. Lyra crawled to him, clutching the shard tightly, her eyes wide with fear and relief. "They will return," she whispered. "And next time, they will come with more." Daniel looked at the ruined door, the snow swirling outside. He knew she was right. The hunters had seen him fight, had seen him stand with her. Now he was part of this, whether he wanted it or not. He tightened his grip on the axe, his eyes hard. "Then we'll be ready," he said. But deep down, he wondered how long 2 souls could stand against the darkness of a whole world. Smoke lingered inside the cabin after the battle. The air smelled of burnt wood and scorched metal. Daniel pushed the broken door shut as best he could, but the wind still slipped through the cracks. His hands were cut, his arm bleeding, but he ignored the pain. The hunters had left, yet their shadows still filled the room. Lyra sat near the fire, holding the glowing shard close to her chest, her face pale, her eyes tired but burning with thought. Daniel watched her for a long moment, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. Finally, he broke the silence. "You need to tell me the truth," he said. "Everything. No more pieces, no more half words. If I'm going to fight for you, I need to know why." Lyra's hands tightened on the shard. For a moment, it seemed she would refuse. Then she lifted her eyes to his. Her voice was soft but steady. "My husband was not just a soldier," she said. "He was part of the council's inner circle, one of their chosen men, cold, proud, and loyal only to power." Daniel frowned, leaning forward. "And you?" Lyra lowered her gaze, her voice heavy with shame. "I was forced into marriage. They thought I could be hidden, that no one would see my half-blood, but secrets do not stay buried. When he learned what I truly was, he called me cursed. He said my touch would poison his line, so he cast me out. But before leaving me, he whispered something that still haunts me." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "What did he say?" Her lips trembled as he spoke. He said, The council will not kill you, Lyra. They will let the human world do it instead. Daniel's stomach turned, so this was not just about her. This was about him too. The council knew where she was going, and they had chosen his door for a reason. Why me? Daniel asked, his voice sharp. What do they want with me? Lyra's hand lifted the shard, glowing faintly in her fingers. Because of this, she whispered. This shard holds knowledge of both worlds, human and alien. My father hid it from them, and only I can unlock it. But it is bound to blood, human blood. Daniel froze, his breath catching. You mean? Yes, she said. They cannot open it without you. That is why they let my husband abandon me here. That is why the hunters looked at you. They need you alive, not because they respect you, but because you are a key. Daniel's hands tightened into fists. A storm churned inside his chest. He had wanted nothing but a quiet life in the mountains. Now he was a pawn in some alien war. He stood, pacing the cabin, his boots creaking against the floorboards. And if I refuse? He asked bitterly. Lyra's eyes softened, filled with both sadness and hope. Then they will kill you, she said. And they will kill me too. But if you accept, together, we might change everything. The fire popped, sparks flying into the air. Daniel stared into the flames, his jaw tight. For years, he had lived alone. No friends, no family, no ties. But now this alien woman sat in his home, her life tangled with his, her enemies, now his enemies, and a secret crystal pulsing like a living heart between them. He turned toward her. Why do you trust me? He asked. You don't even know me. Lyra looked at him with quiet strength. Because you opened the door, she said. Because when the storm tried to kill me, you chose not to let it. Because when the hunters came, you did not give me away. That is more than anyone of my kind has ever done for me. Her words struck him deeper than he expected. For so long, Daniel had thought himself nothing but a shadow in the mountains. Now, in her eyes, he was something else. A protector, a choice, a chance. But before he could answer, the wind outside shifted. The storm's howl faded into a strange silence. Both Daniel and Lyra froze. The silence was too sudden, too heavy. Then came a faint sound, a low hum, like machines stirring the air. Daniel grabbed his axe, his eyes narrowing. Lyra clutched the shard, her face pale. They are still close, she whispered. They never truly left. Daniel's chest tightened. He moved to the window, peeking through the cracks. In the distance, faint lights glowed in the trees, red eyes moving in the dark. The hunters had circled back, watching, waiting. They won't strike again tonight, Lyra said, her voice low. They are testing us. They want us weak, afraid. But tomorrow, they will come in greater numbers. Daniel stepped back from the window, his grip on the axe firm. He looked at the cabin, broken door, cracked walls, smoke-stained air. It would not hold another attack. He turned to Lyra, his decision burning in his chest. Then we don't wait here, he said. If they're coming, we move first. Her eyes widened. Where will we go? Daniel lifted the rifle from the wall, sliding fresh rounds inside. To where they don't expect. If they want to hunt us, then we lead them into the dark, on our ground, not theirs. Lyra stared at him. For the first time, a faint smile touched her lips. A smile not of joy, but of respect. You are not like other men, she whispered. Daniel met her eyes. Maybe not, he said, but neither are you. The fire burned low, the storm outside slowly calming. But in the shadows of the forest, the hunters waited, and both Daniel and Lyra knew the night of survival was ending. The war for truth was about to begin. The cabin was no longer safe. Its broken door let the cold crawl inside. The walls smelled of smoke and burnt wood. Every creak of the floor reminded Daniel of the battle that had nearly ended them. The hunters would return, stronger and prepared. If he and Lyra stayed, they would die here. At dawn, Daniel packed quickly. A small pack with food, water, a rope, his knife and rifle. The axe hung at his belt. Lyra moved slowly, her body still weak, but her eyes sharp with purpose. She wrapped herself in a heavy coat Daniel had found. It was too large for her, but it kept the cold away. The glowing shard she carried close to her chest, hidden beneath the coat. Are you ready? Daniel asked. Lyra nodded, though her lips were pale. If we wait longer, they will surround us, she whispered. Her words pushed him into action. He pulled the cabin door open, and the storm of night had passed. The forest was silent, heavy with snow. It looked peaceful, but Daniel felt the trap. Somewhere among those trees, eyes were watching. They stepped into the snow, their boots sinking deep. Daniel led the way, his rifle in hand. Lyra followed close, her breath leaving soft clouds in the air. The forest stretched endless, white and quiet. But Daniel knew the mountains better than any map. If they moved fast, he could take her to the old caves hidden in the cliffs, a place where hunters would find only shadows. For hours they walked. The silence pressed on them, broken only by the crunch of snow. Every now and then, Lyra would glance back, her alien eyes searching the trees. Finally she whispered, "They are near. I can feel their presence." Daniel stopped, his senses sharpening. At first he heard nothing, then faintly, cracks in the snow behind them, a rhythm too perfect, too controlled. "Hunters, move!" Daniel said sharply. They hurried, but the forest around them seemed to close in. Shadows shifted between the trees, red eyes glowing faintly. The hunters were not chasing. They were herding, pushing Daniel and Lyra towards some unseen corner of the woods. Daniel's jaw tightened. Not this time. He veered sharply uphill, leading Lyra toward the cliffs. The snow grew deeper, the climb harder, but the hunters followed, silent and steady, their glowing eyes never losing sight. By nightfall, Daniel and Lyra reached the edge of the cliffs. The mountains rose high, sharp stone cutting through the snow. Caves opened like black mouths along the rock. Daniel guided her inside one. The cave was cold and damp, but it gave them cover. He set down the pack, his breath heavy. Lyra collapsed against the wall, her silver hair clinging to her face. "They won't stop," she whispered, her voice cracked with exhaustion. "They don't need rest. They will follow until we are trapped." Daniel knelt beside her, his hands steady on her shoulders. "Then we don't let them trap us," he said. "We use this place, make it ours." For the first time, a faint spark lit in her tired eyes. "You think like a soldier," she said softly. Daniel shook his head. "No, I think like a man with nothing left to lose." But even as he spoke, he knew there was more at stake now than just his life. The Shard, Lyra, her secret blood. They were bigger than the mountains, bigger than his quiet cabin life. He was no longer running for himself. The night stretched on. The cave was filled with shadows. Daniel kept his rifle close, watching the entrance. Lyra sat beside him, silent but awake, her hand always on the Shard. Outside, faint red glows moved in the snow. The hunters were there, circling the cliffs, waiting, watching, patient as death itself. Near dawn, Daniel heard it, stones shifting above them. He raised the rifle, his pulse sharp. From the cave mouth, a figure appeared, tall and armored. Red eyes glowing, weapon in hand, the hunters had found them. "Stay back," Daniel growled, aiming the rifle. But another figure stepped into view, then another. They had come in silence, like wolves in the night. Lyra gripped his arm, her eyes wide. "They want you alive," she whispered. "But they will break you first." Daniel pulled the trigger. The rifle cracked, the shot echoing in the cave. The bullet slammed into the first hunter's chest. The alien stumbled back but did not fall. Its armor absorbed the strike, glowing faintly. Another beam of blue light shot back, blasting into the stone. Shards flew, the cave shaking. Daniel pulled Lyra deeper inside. The cave narrowed, twisting into darkness. The hunters followed, their red eyes glowing brighter. Their voices filled the cave, harsh and cold. Daniel fired again, his bullets sparking against the armor. The echoes of battle roared in the stone halls. Lyra pressed her hand to the Shard. It glowed stronger, light spilling across the cave walls. The hunters slowed, their weapons flickering. Daniel glanced at her. "Whatever you're doing, do it faster," Lyra whispered in her alien tongue. The Shard pulsed, the air shaking. The hunters staggered, their visors flashing static. One collapsed to its knees, growling in pain. The light filled the cave, blinding and sharp. Daniel grabbed Lyra's hand, pulling her toward a narrow crack in the rock. Together they slipped through, the glow covering their escape. Behind them, the hunters roared in fury. But for now, Daniel and Lyra vanished into the deeper shadows of the mountain. The cave swallowed them whole, dark, endless, silent, but they were alive. For now, the cave stretched deep into the mountain. Dark corridors twisted like veins of stone. Daniel and Lyra moved slowly, their footsteps echoing. The hunters' voices faded behind them, but the danger was not gone. Every shadow felt alive. Every sound carried fear. Finally they reached Shed a hollow chamber. The ceiling rose high, dripping with frozen water. Daniel set down his rifle, his chest rising and falling with exhaustion. Lyra collapsed against the wall, clutching the shard close. Its light had dimmed now, pulsing faintly like a tired heart. Daniel lit a small fire with the few matches he carried. Orange light spread across the stone, chasing away the heavy dark. He sat beside Lyra, his face lined with questions. She stared at the shard in her hands, her silver hair falling over her face. Her voice was quiet when she spoke. "They will not stop, not until one of us is gone." Daniel looked at her sharply. "There has to be more. Why me, Lyra? Why do they want me alive?" Her eyes lifted to his, glowing faint in the firelight. "The shard cannot open with my blood alone," she whispered. "My father designed it that way. He believed humans carried something my kind had forgotten. A will to survive without chains. That is why the shard needs both our blood, alien and human together." Daniel felt his stomach tighten. "So I'm their key, that's why they haven't killed me." Lyra nodded slowly. "Yes, but if you choose to open it for them, they will use its power to enslave worlds. If you refuse, they will keep hunting you. There is no safe path, Daniel. Only a choice." Daniel clenched his fists. For years he had lived far from people. He wanted no part of wars or councils or alien secrets. Yet now fate demanded a decision. One that could cost his life, or worse, cost the lives of many. The fire crackled. Lyra's gaze softened. "You saved me when you didn't have to," she whispered. "You fought when you could have surrendered. I believe you will choose what is right, even if it breaks you." Daniel met her eyes. For a moment, the storm, the hunters, the danger, it all faded. He saw only her, broken yet strong, an outcast who had become his only ally, and maybe something more. But before he could speak, the ground trembled. A faint rumble shook the cave walls. Pebbles fell from above. Daniel grabbed his rifle, his senses sharp again. Then a voice echoed through the stone, deep and commanding. "You cannot hide from me, Lyra." The sound froze her blood. Her face turned pale, her lips trembling. Daniel had never seen her so afraid. She whispered one word, "My husband." From the shadows at the mouth of the chamber, a tall figure stepped forward. His armor shone black with red veins of light running across it. His face was uncovered, sharp and cruel, his skin darker than Lyra's, his eyes cold like steel. He looked at Daniel first, then at her, his mouth twisted in disdain. "So this is where you have crawled," he said. "To the arms of a human animal." Daniel raised his rifle, anger burning hot. "Stay back," he warned. The alien man laughed, a sound sharp as broken glass. "You think you can stop me with your primitive toys?" His gaze shifted to Lyra. "You shame me, wife. You carry my name but not my honor." Lyra stood, clutching the shard. Her voice trembled but did not break. "You abandoned me to die. You called me filth. You have no claim over me anymore." Her husband's eyes narrowed. "I abandoned you because you are weak, because your blood is tainted, but this human..." He gestured toward Daniel with contempt. "He is useful. The council wants him. You should be grateful I let you live long enough to bring him here." Daniel's finger tightened on the trigger. He was ready to fire, but Lyra touched his arm. Her whisper was urgent. "Careful, he will not fight you fairly. He wants to break you slowly." The alien man stepped closer, his presence filling the chamber. "I offer you a choice, human," he said. "Give me the shard. Come with me to the council, and I will let you live. Refuse, and I will peel the flesh from your bones while she watches." Daniel's heart pounded. The firelight danced across the cave. The shard pulsed in Lyra's hands, answering the tension in the air. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Then Daniel spoke, his voice low and hard. "You had your chance to protect her. You threw it away. Now she's with me, and I don't bow to monsters." Lyra's husband snarled, fury flashing in his eyes. "You will regret this, human." He raised his hand, and his armor came alive with light. Blades of energy forming along his arms. The chamber shook as the battle lines were drawn. Daniel stepped forward, rifle steady. Lyra clutched the shard, its glow rising like fire. The husband's voice roared through the cave. "You cannot win, but you will suffer before you fall." The storm outside howled again, the cave filled with the sound of power and defiance, and Daniel knew the choice had been made. There was no turning back. The chamber shook with the sound of power. The alien husband's armor burned with red light, his eyes sharp as knives. Daniel stood firm, his rifle raised. Beside him, Lyra clutched the shard, its glow building with every breath. The storm outside roared like it too waited for the fight. The husband stepped forward, his voice deep and cruel. "You are nothing, human, a tool the council will use, then throw away. Stand aside and I may spare your miserable life." Daniel's grip tightened on the rifle. He had faced storms, beasts, and hunters, but nothing had filled him with fire like this moment. His voice cut through the cave, steady and hard. "She isn't yours to claim, and I'm not yours to command." The husband roared, energy blades flashing to life in his hands. He lunged forward, faster than Daniel expected. The strike came down with a scream of burning light. Daniel rolled aside, the blade cutting deep into stone. Sparks and rock exploded. He fired the rifle, the bullet, striking the alien's chest. The armor shimmered, slowing the impact but not stopping it. The husband staggered, then laughed. Pathetic. Lyra raised the shard, its glow flooding the chamber. Her voice lifted in her alien tongue. The crystal answered, releasing a shock of blue light. The husband snarled as the energy struck his armor. For the first time, his confidence cracked. "You dare use that against me?" he growled. Daniel pressed the attack, swinging the axe from his belt. The blade bit into the alien's side, sparks flying. The husband howled, striking back with a burst of energy. Daniel was thrown against the cave wall, pain burning through his body. Blood ran from his lip, but he forced himself back up. He had known pain before, but this was different. This was a fight not only for his life, but for hers. Lyra stood firm, her hands glowing with the shard's power. Her voice grew louder, stronger. The shard pulsed, the cave itself trembling. The husband charged at her, rage blazing in his eyes. Daniel saw it and moved, throwing himself in the path. The energy blade slashed across his shoulder, fire and agony tearing through him. But he did not fall. He swung the axe again with a roar, driving it deep into the alien's chest. The husband stumbled, his armor cracking. The shard's light grew brighter, filling every corner of the chamber. The hunters outside howled, their red eyes flickering in the storm. Lyra cried out, pouring everything she had into the crystal. A wave of power erupted, slamming into the husband. He roared, his body shaking, his armor shattering piece by piece. Daniel staggered forward, blood on his face. His voice rose, fierce and unbroken. "You don't get to decide her fate, and you don't get to decide mine." With one final strike, he drove the axe into the alien's chest. The husband screamed, a sound of rage and defeat. Then the shard's light consumed him. His body dissolved into fragments of burning energy. The cave shook as the last echo of his voice faded into silence. Daniel collapsed to one knee, his breath ragged. The axe slipped from his hand. Pain burned through every part of him, but he was alive. He looked up at Lyra, her face glowing in the crystal's light. Tears shone in her eyes. "It's over," she whispered, her voice breaking. Daniel shook his head slowly. "No," he said, "it's only beginning." Outside the cave, the hunters wailed. Their leader was gone, their purpose broken. One by one, the red lights faded into the storm. They vanished into the snow, leaving silence behind. For the first time since that night at the cabin, the world was still. Lyra sank beside Daniel, placing her hand over his wound. Her touch was warm despite the cold. "You should not have risked yourself for me," she whispered. Daniel gave a weak smile. "Guess I didn't have much of a choice." Her eyes softened, glowing with quiet strength. "Then let me share mine," she said. She leaned closer, resting her forehead against his. In that moment, the shard dimmed, its purpose fulfilled, but the bond between them burned brighter than any light. Days later, the storm eased. The mountains stood silent under the pale sky. Daniel and Lyra emerged from the cave, weak but alive. The world looked the same, but nothing truly was. The cabin was gone. The hunters scattered, the council still waiting somewhere among the stars. But they were no longer running, they were together. As they walked down into the snowy valley, Daniel glanced at her. "So," he said, his voice rough but steady. "What now?" Lyra held the shard close to her heart, her eyes turned toward the horizon. "Now we leave this world," she said softly. "The fight is not finished, but we will face it together." Daniel felt the weight of her words. He had once chosen a life of silence and solitude. Now he had chosen her, the woman who had been abandoned as dirty heritage, the woman who was now his strength, his bond, his destiny. The snow crunched beneath their boots as they walked side by side, not as strangers, but as something greater. No longer alone, no longer hunted. Together, they stepped into the unknown, into the stars.